All right. So today is Tuesday, December 20th. Things are going to be a little bit different this week, and it looks like my mic is showing a little bit. Oh well, I'll just move my webcam down. So because of the holidays, I decided to just stream today because the rest of the week is going to be a little bit more on the hectic side. In terms of scheduling. So I wasn't able to stream last Friday because of inclement weather. Got hit by a ton of snow. Ended up having the kids home, which isn't very pleasant trying to stream with any kind of noise in the other background. But today we are golden. So I am going to jump right into it. Change my position here. If you remember from the last stream that we did, we were doing some DominoUI testing. And with that, let's go ahead and just double check some of the changes that were made from after the stream, because I just downloaded the newer dev snapshot, and we should be able to see what bugs have been fixed. Hopefully all of them. I'm pretty sure they are. So let's go ahead and try this. Let's remind ourselves where we left things off. Performance of pin columns plugin, initial load times. I think that one was fine after I tested this. So if I choose like 5,000 rows, load that. It's still a little bit on the slow side. Yeah, still on the slow side. What test criteria? Okay, I did with 500 last time. So let me bring this over here. So let's clear this out. Let's just refresh. So pin columns 500. Let's go ahead and load that. Yeah, that's not nearly as bad as it was last time. But anything more than that, if you think about it, it's got a lot of DOM nodes, so it's probably not spectacular performance-wise having that many DOM nodes anyway. So 5,000 times how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 columns. So it's that many DOM nodes. So one TR tag for each row, but then for every column there's a TD. 500, that's not bad. And it is pinned. So let's go to the next one. If you pin left column 4, then pin right column 3, it locks horizontal. Okay, so let's unpin that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin left. Oh, and then pin right column 3. Yeah, it still does that. So that one's still a defect. Probably should do some checks in there to make sure that we're not pinning opposing columns, because it looks like both of them are pinned, but this is pinned to the left and this one's pinned to the right, so it locks up the entire grid, which is not good. Probably should just disallow that completely because it gets into some weird scrolling issues. So I'm going to create another note. This is going to be Domino UI stream testing, and this is for December 20th. So this one's still an issue. So when pinning a right column in the which the sum width of all pin exceeds the width of the table, it causes weird scrolling artifact. Okay, so here probably just need to refresh the table. Pin columns, let's just do 500. And let's unpin that one. And if we were to pin left that one, still does something weird with the scrolling. All right, so let's copy this one down because that one's still an issue. Not entirely sure what the solution for that one would be, but that one should definitely not be scrolling. Yeah, I don't know what the solution would be for that. Probably have to test with some of the other popular data table libraries like AGGrid to see what happens in those particular situations. It might do something similar. I don't know. It was just unexpected whenever I was testing this before. So when pinning a column which fills the width of the data table. So this one would require me to have a column the same width. So it does look like on the resizable columns, I did... Oh wait, this is just resizable. It's not pinnable. Did I make this one pinnable? No. Or resizable? How am I going to test that? How did I test that before? I think this is basically related, if I'm not mistaken. It's related to the last one. At least we don't have that weird issue, but it still does have a weird issue. So if I pin that one to the left, yeah, that one seems to be correct. If I were to shrink that a little bit, yeah, whenever it gets to the end though, it seems to go a little bit past where it should. Like, I wouldn't expect this one to scroll at all because of the fact that it's pinned and it should be static. So that one's still kind of an issue. Again, it could just be what the data tables do. So I'm going to copy that one down. All right, so pin some columns to the left, wide column, pin a column to the right. Has a width that exceeds the available scroll width. All right. So if I do that and I pin that to the right, yeah, it like bashes up all of these together. I need to remember to mark these points in the stream. I have a button that will flag parts of the stream. Oh, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Right now I'm just doing some testing of the DominoUI. Some of the defects that I had found on a previous stream. So that one is still an issue. It's not the same though. Yeah, there's still an issue, but it's not entirely the same as it was last time. Pin columns with column header filter plugin. Oh, I don't think I have a column header filter plugin. So column header filter. So we were doing it on this one. So let me comment out the live one because we're going to be working on the live grid later today. There we go. It's been deprecated. To use what? Deprecated. Use apply meta, column meta, and pass column filter metadata. Okay. So I think that change so that for the make, I need to apply meta, new header, column header filter meta. This takes a filter, text header filter, create. I don't know. Maybe that's what it needs to be. Let's go ahead and refresh that guy, and let's see what that does. Yeah, that seemed to be correct. Of course, this isn't a live grid anymore, so we do not want a million records because that will kill the other browser. Okay, that does scroll. That's good. What about resize? If I were to add the pins plugin, let's try the pins. That is not pinning. Why is that not pinning? I guess I need to set a config. I think that's how that works now. So then if I do this, I need to set a config, pin column config. All right, show pin icon, show pin menu. Let's just go ahead and show them on both. And this has to be a R for generics. Ugh, generics. All right, let's go ahead and refresh that and see if I can pin these columns now. Just want to make sure that that will continue. So if I were to pin that to the left, that works. If I were to pin it to the right, oh, well, that's because of that existing issue. Ooh. It doubled up on the pin icon. Oh, it's because it's pinned on both the left and the right. Ooh. I forgot to unpin it from the left. So I need to... Oh, yeah, that's another bug. Yeah, that one's a weird one. New bug found. When pinning a column, it appears that I need to remember to mark this point in the stream so that I can easily find the section. So when pinning a column, it appears that you can pin it to both the left and the right and end up with two pin icons in the header. It also messes up the pin state as you cannot unpin both. That's at least what it appeared to be to me. So let's go ahead and refresh that. Let's load. Let's make sure that we can scroll, and the entire table scrolls. If I were to pin this to the right first, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. All right, so I pinned it to the right. That's fine. And this part is scrollable. But then if I pin it to the left, it's pinned to the left and the right. But then if I unpin, it only unpins one of them, and it looks like it's only the first one that it unpinned, which was the unpin to the right, because it's still pinned to the... No, it's still pinned... That's weird. Because now it looks like the model, if I were to shrink this, yeah, it looks like the model column is pinned to the right, not the make at all. Yeah, that's bizarre. I don't even know how to describe that. Need to make sure that I relay this portion of the video so that I can demonstrate it a little bit better. But this one seems to be resolved because before it wasn't even scrolling with anything. Let's try the column header with the resizable. So add plugin, new resize columns plugin. So let's try resizing the other column and make sure that the header filter follows that resizing as well. Yep, looks like it. Nice. So then if I pin that to the left, that works. I can resize it. That all works. That looks really good. I like it. All right, so that one's resolved. That one's good. All right, so resize columns plugin. Feature request, ability to clip instead of ellipses for, oh, and that was done. That was with the config. So here, if I show the pin icon to false, so now whenever I pin, I can just eliminate the pin icon. Might be nice to be able to change the pin icon. I might be just asking for too much, but it might be nice for the configuration to also be able to pass in the icon. Right now it just show pin icon, but not setting the actual icon. So that could be a good feature. Thanks for the follow. Adnan Sorry, I'm just butchering that name. So yeah, that could be a good feature request. So feature request. Resize. No, this is pin columns. Icon used. All right. Text overflow. So yeah, that one was done. When loading new data, all of that stuff should be fixed. So if I were to load 50 records, regenerate with 51 so that it's brand new data. And yeah, that's all good. So nothing is broken with that anymore. Combination of resize and grouping. So I do have a group down here, so group columns. This looks a lot better than last time because I think this stuff was being centered vertically, so it was a little confusing, and this is a little bit closer to what people would be used to. And this one, the resize does work on the groups, and it doesn't have that weird issue that it did before. And it does look like the tooltips are still flashing. I mean, it's there for a second, but it's flashing. Except for that one. Seems like the very... Oh, that one too. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like the top two header rows, the tooltip's staying there, but it's just flashing. And I think I mentioned that. Hovering resizer causes the state. Oh, that it was not the same issue. That one is still an issue. So this one, let me go back to the resizer. It looks like I still am able to resize it past the point of the resizing handle disappearing. Resizing plugin. Still resize a column past the point of... Oh wait, you can't see what I'm typing. That wasn't on screen. Can still resize a column past the point of being able to see the resize handle. Yeah. So yeah, that one's probably not a good idea, because if you resize it past that point, you basically lost control of being able to resize it again. All right. That one's not an issue anymore. When you resize a column, that's in a column. Oh, that one I did test. That one seems fine now. So whenever I load the data, it doesn't have the same issues that it did last time, where it did weird snapping with the column groups. That's no longer an issue. Group heights should probably be a single row. Okay, so this is the thing that I mentioned before. It was it's kind of interesting that it has the price tooltip on that blank space. So tooltips still an issue, and that seems to only be with the grouping. Oh, thanks for the follow. Heavy XWRS. Seems like we're getting a lot of followers with just random letters. Tooltips, issues with the grouping column. Still just flashing the tooltips. All right, cool. So a lot less issues, but there's still a couple. So I am going to switch over. We are going to start, now that we did the domino testing, I'm pretty satisfied with a majority of this. I think I can actually pull this into one of my projects and get it to work for the most part. Might just change some of these so that it has like a minimum width, so that I can't accidentally, or a user can't accidentally shrink it beyond where it was. So like a column group. So let me do grouping columns. Let's see if that's possible. Column group. And this was the ID column, set width 64, set min. Oh wait, isn't there a min width? Yeah, min width of, let's see, how tiny is it? So if I turn on my magnifying glass, you can see how it's disappearing, and right there it's disappeared. Yeah. So that is probably the narrowest I can make that column. So if I were to inspect that, let's just check out to see how wide that is. It looks like it's about 33 pixels wide. So 33 pixels. Let's see if that changes it. All right, so grouping columns. If I were to resize now, oh, nope. That's weird. Inspect. Let's inspect that. That's not, it's too thin. Oh, that's not good. So that's a bug. Let's bring this back. I'll mark this on the other stream, put a little bookmark here. So this one, even though I set a minimum width on the column config, because of the resizing column, it still makes it where I can scroll past, or resize it past that point. So resizing columns plugin, even with a column config with a min width set, you can still resize smaller than that min width. Which is bad, because I was hoping that I would be able to set the minimum width on this column and not allow it to be resized past that point. Looks like it's also basically the minimum width appears to be It's smallest it can go without word wrap. Doesn't want to go past that point. Almost think that there should be a feature request for that. Feature request. So feature request for resizing columns plugin. Oh, thanks for the follow. Random letters and numbers. That's bizarre. Where was I? Feature request for column resize or resizing columns plugin. Need ability to clip content rather than fit content. Does that make sense? So right now, if I resize it to the lowest, you can see that it is the width of one of these items, and you can't go beyond that. So it's not going to clip, and it seems to word wrap some of these others. I don't know, might make sense to prevent word wrap in some cases. And it would be nice to do some text overflow, maybe either clip or use ellipses. So that would be the feature request for that one. All right, so if any other defects come up, I will have my note here. And let's go ahead and switch over. I am going to change the stream title to DominoUI Live Grid Development. Cool. Stream is updated. All right, so let's come back over here. Let's reset this up. Things did change with the with how the grids worked and where the scrolling position is. But let's go ahead and get rid of this column header filter. Let's temporarily get rid of these other plugins. Add plugin, new live view plugin. And the data store is the live view data store, so that will work between the two. So let's go ahead and see what that does. Because of the fact that we were using absolute position before, that's going to be problematic. Yeah, as you can see, it's not working. So where is that data? So if I were to inspect this, let's see where that data is. So the rows are there. So I was playing around, so I should have probably preceded my statement with some of this. I was trying to play around with the different options that we have in regards to translations versus absolute position. So if I were to come over here, let's take a look at Git, see what my changes were. Might yeah, let me stash this change real quick, or shelve it. So temporarily, let's shelf that change. Oh, yeah, it's no problem. As soon as I get something working. Oh, thanks for the follow. Random letters and numbers. Canity. Sorry that we're getting a lot of follows by just random letters So once I get the live plugin working, I'll probably go ahead and submit it so that it can be just part of DominoUI. Let's go ahead and refresh to see what it looks like with the recent changes. And you'll notice that because of the absolute positioning, I mean, it still works. So if, oh, well, no, it does not work. So let's fix one problem at a time. And that was because before the scrolling was happening on the T body, but now it's not. So let's just take a look at the other shelf, because I've already changed some of this stuff. Let's go ahead and minimize this. Let's bring that down here, give us some screen real estate, and let's take a look at our live grid plugin. So here's the differences that I made. The first one that we're going to look at is this one right here. We can't listen to the scroll because before we were listening to the scroll on the table element. No, we were listening to the data table element, not the table element inside of the data table element. Because the scroll changed, I need to change this to data table dot table element, because that's where the scrolling is. And we can find that out pretty easily by right-clicking on the scroll bar itself and seeing that the scroll bar is actually part of the table element. Last week, whenever I was developing this, or the week before, the scroll was on this div and not the other table. So we do have to listen to a different place now. Let's format that code. And I guess I can squash that up just to be the same as our shelf. I think that was it for that. So if we were to refresh this, this should at least fix the live part of it. So let's go ahead and load up that 1 million records. And if we scroll through, no, that is still not working. Yeah, let's take a look at the next one. What else are we missing? So that should be scroll. That changed. Let's just go through these one at a time. That was my experimentation of stop using the resizing row. I was trying to see if I could just resize the T body itself. I might still do that instead of having that special row, and then I could just dump all of the content inside of the T body. Table row element. So this is the absolute position. I did change this. So I was using the offset, but that was to fix a different problem. I will circle back to that one. And this is where we're using the body element height instead of the sizer. I swore this was fixed whenever I came through here before. This is not loading the records. What is it doing to the T-body? So we have that T-body, and we have, it is not loading any data, so we are not. Oh, you know what? I know why. Because now that we're listening to we're looking at the wrong place for the top, or the scroll top. So let's take a look at the update scroll. Oh, that was the other change. Haha, I didn't even see that. So I changed it so that we're looking at the event target. So if the scroll were to ever change again, I'm not looking at a specific element. So here we can just do HTML element, cast, import that. Event target scroll top. There we go. There we go. So this should fix that. This is basically just looking at the event, and whatever the scroll target was, that's where it's going to grab the scroll top value. So this should at least fix that. I'm hoping. Yeah, there we go. Cool, 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 cool. So scroll all the way down here. We can see that there's a million rows. At some point, I'm going to have some sort of overlay, like a loading maybe. Something that I would be able to show in one of the animation frames that something's actually happening instead of a white screen while you're scrolling. That just seems kind of weird. I mean, you can see it flip through there occasionally, and that's because that's where the data is. The ones that are currently there. There is that timer that waits for the scrolling to stop for at least, I think it was 200 milliseconds or something like that, before it actually triggers the refresh, because we don't want to load data on every single pixel that we're scrolling. We want to wait until the user stops scrolling for just a little bit before actually pulling that up. So there is some room in there for some extra animation frames. But you might wonder why these are all crammed up to the left side, and it's because of the absolute position. Before last week's release candidate, the columns, basically all of the widths of the TDs were applied to every single cell. Where here it looks like it's only being added to the T head. So if we take a look at the T head, TRs or THs, we can see the width are set there. In order for the T body cells to do the same, they can't be absolute positioned. So that's why I removed the position absolute, and we're going to have to try something different, trying to get it to position appropriately. So if we were to look at this, we change the scroll or the position from absolute. Where is this one? So it's down there. It's like way down there now. And we want to translate the Y value maybe to negative that. Where's it put it now? No, that doesn't work. Translate 0. I think that's the other reason why I changed it to not use this sizing TR, because of the fact that now that it's not absolute position, it's going to append all of those elements to the very bottom. So it's going to change the scroll bar height, which is really a problem whenever we're listening to like the body resize handlers. That one didn't change at all. So we're still looking at the data table element itself for the resize, which is fine. But if we were to continue adding TRs to the bottom of that sizer, it's going to change that table size. So let's try that out. Let's stop appending the sizing row. So append child sizing row. Let's just comment that out. So we took care of this modification, but we also need to make sure that the scroll bar is tall enough. So that was where the T body change took place. All right, so this one, this is on before add row. So this is the table row. That's append row on before. So I commented out the absolute position. Should be fine. Still going to use the translate. We're going to see if that works. And this was the other thing that I did. So on all rows added, so after all of the rows have been added, that's where I was setting the sizing row, but we're not actually adding that anymore. I'm just going to keep it there. I'm going to delete it later once we get something that actually works. I'm just going to copy that. So that is basically the same thing. Just setting the T-body height to the total height that it should be for the total number of records that we have. And did we capture everything? Ignore that, because then I can just get rid of this diff. We got rid of the child. Got rid of the absolute position. We got that body element to be sized, and we started listening to the table event. All right, cool. So we can get rid of that that temporary shelf. Wanted to make sure that everybody was caught up with what I've been doing. So now you are, and let's just experiment to see how we can fix this. So let's refresh, load some data, and it's empty. That's not what I was hoping for. Let's inspect this. Let's see what we got. That TR has a crazy height. 1,882,350 pixels tall. It's kind of weird, huh? Even though we have the height set to 32. Max height 32. I think it's because we're resizing the body. Because of the fact that we're resizing the T body, the browser is trying to take all of the TRs and space them out to be equal heights to fill in that T-body space. And I think that's going to be problematic. So we might have to, after all, have the resizing. That is going to be problematic. That's going to change. I think that's going to make the scroll bar flicker because of the fact that we're not using absolute position now. It's going to basically be resizing that T body every single time a row is added. And whenever you're scrolling, it's constantly removing and adding those TR elements based upon your scroll top position. So that is going to be bad. Yeah, look at that. That's doing some weird stuff already. That's based upon scroll position. Kind of fluttering there, which is really weird. If I inspect this, that's the Corvette cell. Yeah, that's not going to work out too well. I know that other grid, like AG Grid, they don't use tables. Which probably because there's some implicit layouts that HTML tables have that it's very difficult to get around. So if I were to inspect this table, pretty sure these rows are going to be just divs, yeah. So you have all of these divs, and those are rows, and then you have divs inside of that, which are cells. I think it has CSS for display. Look at computed. Display is, oh, it's block. Thought it would be like display table cell or something. Nope. Are they doing the positioning on these? Yeah, they're doing translates. Translate Y. That's translating the row, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. But the like I said, the problem was with the implicit layout mechanisms that tables incur. How are the columns handled? So is it actually resizing? It looks like it's putting a width and a left on every single cell. I think that's expensive. I mean, sure, they're doing the virtualization. Yeah, I don't want to do that though, because that would slow things down. I just need to figure out a way to. I need to figure out a way to resize the T body without it flickering. I mean, let's try with the sizing row. So let's comment that back out and pin child sizing row. Right, and I don't want to do that. In the past, I've done a dynamic CSS where I have a model internally for the worksheet that is able to calculate, just like with AG Grid, where it's calculating the left and the width of a particular row and column. But it's put as a CSS class, a CSS definition, and you would just apply like row 0, column 3, and it would be able to get all of its CSS stuff that way. So then whenever you resize a column, it's just changing that column CSS rule definition for the width, and then it also iterates through all of the columns after it because of how the model's listening for all of those events. It has to update the left on all of the ones following. I mean, pros and cons, but it's actually pretty quick, depending on how many columns you have, I guess. Also do it with rows, and it really isn't that bad, timing-wise. So dynamic CSS might be a good way to go, because it could solve a lot of those issues. But I am going to continue with what we have today. So let's go ahead and add that sizing row in there. Yes, changing the CSS at runtime. It's actually very nice. I actually did it with the binding stuff that I did recently. It wasn't in this project. It was the other project that I was working on a month or two ago, where I was just updating CSS rule definitions, just programmatically creating the rules. It's very nice to do it that way. All right, so now I put the sizing column back in, or sizing row, and that one is now 32 pixels. So it's not trying to change the height of the other rows, but the translate is obviously going to be wrong. That one, I basically need a negative translate. So if this one is 32 million pixels, I need to have this one negative 32 pixels. There it is. So it's basically, yeah, that's gross. I don't like that. We're going to have some weird, we're probably going to have some weird one-offs on this. But I mean, that does work. So if I were to take 32 pixels, it will be stupid to do it this way, but negative 32. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minus 32 pixels. Oop! Did not mean to do that. I have to put pixels on that one. And that's going to be plus 32. Right? No? Is it just a flat out? Oh, that one may actually not be that bad. Because it's not even a calc anymore. You can't see what I'm typing? Oh, because of my face. Haha. Thanks. My big fat head. Let me no cam that. So yeah, looks like I could just put a negative Y translate on all of the TR. So basically grab the height of the total number of records. Do that. Good work. So I don't need to calculate an offset anymore. Do I have a total height? It's just local. So I can get the probably make that a field. But for now, just because I'm testing, let me just do it inline. Sizing row, element, style, height, string. And it needs to be a negative. I still think this is going to flicker because it's adding and removing elements at the very bottom of that sizing row. Even though it's doing the translate and it's kind of absolute position, it's still probably accumulating to the bottom with the total record size. Nope, that is, what in the world is that doing? That's not what I was expecting. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm still gonna have to do some level of math in here. Because everything is basically, so that was only good for, ooh, no, that's worse. I don't even know how to explain this. So it's basically like a pinned order. So I need to know for this particular data index that it is the first one pinned after this. And I have to do the translate based upon its position. But the problem is with the LRU cache, these are going to be out of order. Like, look here, we have the data index 0, which should be at the top, but because it is subtracting its position because of the translate 32 million pixels, it's still putting it after all of these, because these are all basically shifting up in the same exact order that they are in the DOM, which is not what we want. That is definitely not what we want. So whenever you are scrolling back and forth, it's going to be modifying these records based upon that LRU cache. But since it's in an always append mode, it's going to continually append to the bottom regardless of the direction that we're scrolling. So yeah, that's going to be bad. That's not very helpful. I mean, sure, it maintains the correct number of TRs in here, but so it's probably not going to flicker the scroll bar like I thought. It might be a little bit taller than it should be, though, because it's taking into account the sizer row plus 32 pixels times the size of my cache. So if I take a look at the height of this, it is 32 million pixels plus 1100. So how many? 34, 33 times 32. Oops. I just did 1056. Doesn't seem correct. 1100. 1056. I don't know. That's not very helpful. All right, so how do we overcome that? How do we overcome that? Because we kind of need some sort of sizer in there. I mean, what other things could we resize? The problem, I could resize the entire table, but the problem is the T head. I would have to subtract that out, and that's going to be variable, especially whenever you have like group columns, or you could have some line feeds due to word wrap. Possibly, I don't know if it supports word wrap in the columns. No, it does not. Oh. That looks like an issue. Column group plugin. Oh, mark this point in the stream. Column group plugin plus resizing column plugin. You can. Oh, I just downloaded the latest snapshot. I did that this morning before the other stream. Resize a column smaller than one of the group headers. No clipping. I don't know. I grabbed the latest snapshot whenever it was counting down. I still have that window open. No, I don't. To show that it was downloaded this morning. It was like 2 hours ago. Or how long have I been streaming? An hour? So it's been about an hour ago whenever I got the latest dev snapshot. And I have done a full clean of cache. So see if you can reproduce that. I mean, it's at least clipping this, but some of the other issues are still present. All right. live grid, live grid. How can we do that? I don't want to have to maintain index times a translated value for that. Okay, no problem. I'll be sending you a PDF of this. I need to remember how I did that. I think I just did a print of it, and I printed to PDF. And then I'll provide that. And I have been trying to bookmark the VOD, so I should be able to check those locations for any of the other bug reports. I wasn't very diligent about it, so it might be missing some of the bookmarks, but that's something that I'm having to work on. All right. So we've tried doing the T-body. Ah, boy. I hate that it. Oh, I wonder. That might be interesting. Trying to think here. If I were, yeah, I do a lot of that. What if I added an additional? How would that work? Something will have to be absolute positioned. If I add another T-body in here somewhere, I can't do that from here because it'll detect a resize and rework the grid. All right, so let's go back and let's not append the sizing row, but I would like to create a HTML content builder HTML body element. Sizing body equals T-body. Can't I do that? Section, oh. Section element. Okay. So then how would I check that? Whenever appending a row, I guess I wouldn't have to do it on the row append. I can do it on the initialize. So data table element append child T-body. No, sizing body. Of course, it's not going to have a size right now. I just want to see what this does. So now I should have a table. I have that T-body, that T-head, and that T-body. Oh, that's not good. I guess the header's not there yet. So I kind of wanted this one to be further down. Well, let's just play around with that. So if we were to, this isn't resizing, is it? No, it's not. Which is good. Oh, how can we do that? I wanted this guy to be height 32 million pixels. Nope, that causes issues. This was the last child. Yeah, it can't be the last child. Unless I were to change the other position. No, because then I would have to calculate the header height. Because if I were to put like a position relative on this guy, and then position absolute on this one. Absolute. Where's my data? Oh, and there I guess it would be translate 0. Oh, my head. Your mic is cutting off when you're. Oh, sorry. I keep slouching. I will talk closer to the microphone, maybe. Now, even that that seems to be a problem whenever we put the T-body in absolute position. That still has the column issue, so that's not a good fix. Too close to the screen does it too. That's weird. Let me change it to broadcaster maybe. That's what I had last week. Some of these have like noise gates on it, and it does weird things. So whenever I'm talking away from it, it does weird things. But broadcaster seems to be okay. Maybe broadcaster 2 this week. We'll see if that cuts off. Voice equalizer. I liked some of these others, like Warm and Crisp. I think that one was pretty good, especially if you're talking really close to it and got the good sound. Warm and Vintage. I think that one was cutting off too. Should check some of the gates and the noise reduction. But let me just switch over to Broadcaster 2. I don't know if you were hearing any of the other differences. I don't think I hear it on my in my headphones, but I can also, even though the boom mic is going to be in the screen, maybe if I do it like that. But then now I can't see my own monitor. You like the radio one? I did too. That one was classic radio. Well, maybe I can do this and just look around the mic. It's going to be annoying though. All right, I am not entirely sure what to do with that. So adding an additional T-body, that's not going to work. T-body. Get rid of that guy. That is not going to work, unfortunately, because I can't have anything absolute position. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to handle the sizing of the other columns. It's not going to match the T head. So it's really one of two things. It's either resizing the T-body as a whole, or putting a sizing TR. So there's issues with both. Putting the TR in there. I could prepend all of these records, but then I still have that same issue where all of these are going to basically be that order. So if I scroll down, because of the LRU cache, you're going to have some, let me scroll up real quick so that you can see that we have some of the data indexes in there that are 351,000. And then we also have 0 through 16 in there. And those are going to be translated in the order unless I were to do some calculations. But then we have weird subpixel issues because of with the division. Some of these rows might actually overlap each other, and it'll make some of the row borders appear thicker only because it's overlapping in a really weird way. Stupid subpixel math. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that. The only thing that did work was the absolute positioning. I wish I could resize that T-body. Right, but I'm not clearing data. This is append always. I had to do it that way. I can't remember the exact reasons, but I did have to do an append only approach because it was clearing out records that I didn't want to have cleared out. So that's why in my LRU cache, I have it automatically clearing up, removing from the data table model anything that we're clipping due to the cache size. So whenever we remove the index from the queue, we remove it from the keys, and then we also have that callback that would be able to remove it from the table, the data table itself. I just wish that browser wasn't trying to equally size the rows, even though whenever you have the height set to 32 pixels, even a max height, even if we put a max height in there as 32 pixels, because of how browsers want to render tables, if the T-body is of a certain height, like 32 million pixels, it's going to attempt to equal size all of those. And that's absolute position. We need that to be relative. Oh, I still have the other T-body in here. That's why some of this isn't working. Need to refresh so that we can see what it looks like with the recent code changes. That data. All right, so this one. Yeah, I'm not adding that sizing column. So right now the T-body is only 544 pixels tall, and that's just enough to accommodate for all of these TRs. But because of the translations, they're basically getting translated way off the screen. So I can change that back. Where did I change that? Translate. There it is. What was that before? Offset. we go. Yeah, I think Colin is still going to be streaming tomorrow, maybe. I'm not used to streaming on Tuesdays. Today is a weird day for me. Actually, might actually work. I said actually a lot. It might actually work pretty well for me. Yeah, look at that. Oh, weird. What is it doing there? Yeah, and also the fact that it's because it's not. Why is it doing that? So that is translating. That is weird. Turn off my cam for a second so I can see the styles over here. Why is it skipping? Oh, that's because of the absolute position before. I was relying upon absolute position. But now, because these are basically ordered in the same fashion, I don't even know how to explain this. Because they're in here in a static order based upon insertion order or append order. Then it's doing a translate, and it's basically adding the extra 32 pixels for every single one of these. So if I did this one translate just to 0, it pushes it down. But then this one, this is for the other third one. If I translate that to 0, it's because it's relative order based upon its insertion, which again has an issue whenever I scroll to the bottom and back up, because these are definitely not going to be, we're not going to want to position these in the order that they are in the DOM. And I don't really feel like ordering the TRs based upon where they're at in the index. That just seems really stupid. I mean, the whole point of using that LRU cache was to make sure that things, if we were to scroll down and scroll back up, if it's still in cache, it'll still be in the DOM, and there's no reason to expunge it. So I am not entirely sure. I like the absolute position. I just can't get it past that. Well, I mean, we do have the offset in here. Sizing row. Let's go ahead and add that sizing row back. All right, so we add that sizing row back. We have to do some fancy stuff. So the offset should still work to some degree. It's going to have something to do with the total height minus the offset, maybe. But that's still not accounting for the insertion order. Oof. So what are you planning on streaming tomorrow, Colin? I know that last week you were playing around with Jackal stuff again. Oh yeah, that's right. But you were but you were doing some Jackal stuff for being able to do that custom, right, object formatter. I ended up having to leave a little early in your stream because of meetings and stuff. Wednesdays are usually bad for me. Was it quit? I swear you were doing Jackal stuff. Maybe it was just the JS interop that threw me off. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to whiteboard this. Because I need to know. Right. Yeah, trying to do any kind of reflection or anything like that of trying to determine types and their values and the fields and stuff like that. That usually sucks pretty hard in Gwt, because you don't have that same kind of runtime reflection. Maybe if we just stare at it long enough. How do you get this without absolute position? I need to know where it's inserted into the as a child, and then do the offset based upon its current index. I don't want to do a lot of math though. It seems kind of silly to do a lot of calculations. Can you have absolute positioned rows inside of a table in which the columns adhere to the t-head? Yeah, that's not it. Yeah, that is a really bad, really bad way to search for that. I'm not sure. Did we refresh this? I thought we added that sizing, the sizing row back in there. Doesn't look like it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the sizing row is in there. But if we do position absolute, top 0. Yeah, I mean, it's table row is the display type. I think that has to be on the table element, right? Yeah. I don't think that's going to do anything, but Might as well just experiment. Yeah, that doesn't help any. Yeah, I don't know, Ahmad. I might have to do something else. Yeah, because that's not going to work. I mean, it wouldn't be a problem. Would it be a problem? Yeah, it still is a problem because of the absolute position. Because we have to have some sort of known anchor point. And whenever this worked before, it's because I set the row as absolute position and top 0. And then all of the translates were based upon that anchor point. So every single row was absolute position to top 0 and then translated down into its offset. But that way it didn't have to worry about row insertion order. Whereas right here, if these aren't absolute positioned, this translate has to account for which child is it of the T-body, and that's going to be very, very problematic. And what are some of the options that we have for mutating a table through CSS? A lot of people are going to say, hey, don't use tables. And for the most part, I agree. Tables are just awful. Because the browser, because of backwards compatibility, it has to do layouts in a certain way. And that's the struggle. Yeah, I had mentioned that previously, where it might make sense at some point to deprecate the old one and use some lessons learned and attempt to create something new that migrates away from like the other table and starts out from the get-go with row virtualization, being able to do basically what I've been doing with the live grid of limiting the number of rows that you're actually rendering in the DOM based upon the scroll position. So if you start out from day one with that would help considerably. It's sort of like whenever mobile was brand new and everybody was like, hey, you need to design mobile first. Yeah, that makes sense. Because that's eventually your website is going to be in somebody's iPhone browser, and if it doesn't work very well, it's your problem. But in this particular case, many data tables are intended to represent or display large data sets, and can't throw all of those in as DOM nodes. And I'm not a fan of the canvas approach. Canvas with either the context 2D or the WebGL for that stuff because it's not stylable. And then all of the interactions that you have to do with, especially with like a inline editing of the other grid. So if I go to demo.dominokit.org, let's take a look at the data table that we have now. So yeah, like some of this stuff, it wouldn't be stylable if it were Canvas, at least not with CSS. Right, and it would definitely need to be able to work with all of the existing plugins, if not having to rewrite some of the other plugins to work with the new layout, because a lot of the plugins, they rely upon the table elements, table, T-body, TRs. Whereas if a new implementation were to just use divs and maybe dynamic CSS for the columns and the other row positions, I think that would require a lot of rewrite of the other plugins. But that's not going to help us today. For the next release, I would like to get, because I've already written this live grid plugin for release candidate 13 or whatever I have in one of my clients' code base, and the live grid works there. And it would be a problem if it didn't work on a future version. So I do have to get this to work, unfortunately. So just trying to figure out how to get these columns to line up without killing performance of having to set the TD widths on every single row, every single TD, and that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. I can do some weird stuff. What if I were to set the width of one of these to 64 pixels? I can do some weird hybrid stuff. Like I can, ooh, that might be interesting. I can do some dynamic CSS. I can create, but then there's like every data table will have its own dynamic CSS, which probably isn't that bad. We would have to obfuscate, obviously. We can't just do like a class called call0, because multiple data tables would use the same thing, so I'd have to obfuscate it to some degree. Even if it's through a selector, that might be fine. So what I was thinking, let me think out loud. What if we were to put a resize observer on the T head? Maybe some other observer, I don't know. Because we would like to know, like, whenever the THs were to resize. So if we have like a resize plugin in here and we resized one of the headers. Yeah, that's possible too. If we have a resize that occurs, we would want to update that particular column's definition to match that. So then whenever the live grid plugin, since it's also the row appender that's set on the data table, whenever a row is added, it'll have to go through the cells on that row and set a class name based upon that dynamic CSS rule that we create. So that whenever, and all it's doing is setting the width. I wouldn't have to worry about setting left because we're still taking into account this using the table layout mechanism. So we know that it's always going to put TRs next to each other unless the TD itself is absolute position. And that's not what we're doing. We're just absolute positioning the row and not the column. My biggest concern is to make sure that we have the same values set. Like I don't know what happens if you were to insert a column or anything like that dynamically. Can you do that? Do you have the ability to add and remove columns? Like if you had a column that you hid, does it remove it from the DOM or just change the width to like 0 or display none? So if I were to take this and display none, hides that. Let me put all of the absolute position stuff back. I don't want to do that anymore. That was not a good idea because of the layout mechanisms for that. All right, let's see what this does. Put the absolute position back so that it'll at least show us the rows on the right lines. It's just all left shifted. So if I were to inspect that, display none, does that? Oops, I misspelled none. Okay, that does not impact the data. But if I were to position not absolute on that and do a translate of negative 0, negative 32, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pixels. No, that still doesn't make the display go away on that. But it's still there. So, continue with the thinking out loud. What if we were to listen to any kind of changes in the T head for like the number of children that are in there? I need to just double check the grouping because I think those are different T heads, right? No, that's all in a single T head. Oh. So in that one, I could just look at the last TR, and that will be the column widths. So then I can basically take a look at this and do like 0.offset left 64. Because that's the width of that. So I should be able just to grab the offset lefts, or I guess just the offset widths too, like offset width. That's 200, so that's a 200 pixel, and then I can just update a column definition, right? This probably seems really stupid, but it might actually work. So let's try it out. After a break. Let me go ahead and take a 5-minute break. I need to stretch my legs, grab some more water. And whenever we come back, we are going to try some dynamic CSS. I might want to, let's see, what are my local changes so far? I didn't want to commit. Why didn't I want to commit that? I can go ahead and commit that. That's fine. I didn't want to commit the domino upgrade because this is still a dev snapshot. I didn't want to actually commit that. That's why it was down there. Eventually that'll be a release candidate, but let me go back to my view, clean things up. Yeah, I was playing around with the search because I wanted to just double check the search, but I'm just going to keep that as is. I want to probably just commit these changes. Yeah, let me just go ahead and commit these changes. Updates from 12:20 stream. Sure. Nothing important because this is just a private repository for now. I'll probably squash everything if this ever becomes public. But most likely I'm just going to contribute the 2 classes or however many classes to the Domino project. And I'll just be part of that. So let me take a quick 5-minute break and I will be right back. So let's see what would be involved in actually doing this as dynamic CSS. Everything is persisted. Let me turn down the music a little bit. This music's kind of boring. Trying to stay within the copyright free. This one might be okay. All right. So I gotta remember like how to actually do this. So let's take a look. Yeah, this microphone in the middle of my view is not great. Wonder if I can pull it over here. Can you still hear me? Not very. You have to just deal with it cutting in and out. May have to take it off the arm. So yeah, that is literally right in my face. It's just gonna be in the other shot. That's fine. I'll deal with it before the next stream. All right. So basically, I want to have some mechanism for watching the header. So in the init method, data table header element. Adding to I guess we only really care. I guess the only issue with just listening to the header for resize is if 2 columns were to resize without impacting the width. So if you subtract 10 pixels off of this one and add 10 pixels to this one, the header itself technically didn't resize. I don't think. I'm not sure how to test that sort of thing. think majority of the cases here, especially with the column resize plugin, it's going to resize the header as a whole. There's no way to have your mouse change the width of one column and change the width of the other one to compensate. So the odds of that ever happening are probably slim to none. I don't know. Let's just try it. Size. And this is going to be the element, observer, and entries. That's weird. Oh. It's like, why did it bring down commented out code? That's not commented out, it's just a weird color. Really hard to see. Element. Oh, there it is. Observer. And then entries. Let's just see what it does. All right, so it does look like it resized once, which is fine, because whenever it's adding it to begin with, I guess it triggered that resize event. Okay. So in the element, probably need to get the last element child, because that's going to have all of the individual columns in there. And this is technically a header row, a TR. So then that TR not what I wanted. It's a HTML TR table row element. Assuming that nothing else has been pushed into the T head. And I need to cast that. I don't know if I need to do a JS cache or not. You know, I should probably, let's just ignore this, because there might be multiple mechanisms for triggering this, and I want it to be consistent. So I am just going to do on header resize, and we're just going to look at the data table header element. Last child. Okay. Because like I said, if right now we're doing it on the on resize, but I might change that at some point. There might be other entry points to that. So I'm just going to call it without any arguments. Make sure it's a consistent way to trigger that there is some sort of header resize. And so we get the last header row, and that's only because of the grouping. It looks like the last header row will at least have all of the columns in there. I couldn't imagine it not. And this should be the last row in the T-head. Usually it'll have just a single row, but for grouped, it'll have multiples. So for the header row, I always hated iterating through child nodes. For int I equals 0, I is less than header row child. See, nodes versus elements are different, as you can have a text node. But since all of this stuff is programmatically created, I really doubt there's any text nodes in there. Yeah, might as well just grab that list, or that All right, so this one, kind of need this as an HTML element. I mean, they're all TDs in here, but cast that L dot offset width. Oops. All right, so let's go ahead and create the style sheet, shall we? So in the init, we basically need to initialize style sheet. HTML style. I'm trying to remember how this is done. I don't think Elements has style, does it? No. Document? How do you get that? DOM global document create element style. I'm gonna have to look this up. I have code, but I can't show that code on stream. And it would take me a couple of minutes to look it up. Or actually, no, I just recently did this, didn't I? Give me a couple of seconds. Or actually, I can just have my screen on here. I just need to go out to a different directory in my terminal. Spur to span. What was the project that we were doing? Binding? That may be fine. So in the binding client. So I was doing dynamic CSS here, wasn't I? I cannot recall if I was doing it or not. CSS template, maybe it was under core. Those are all the properties. Yeah, I thought so. I just can't remember where. Right. Do that again. Let me see if I can open up another project. Span binding. Ooh, that's a big window. There we go. So this was a previous project. Let me just open up that IntelliJ project. Let me remember where that was. CSS. Style sheet helper. Yeah, even with this, I was having to obfuscate just to make sure that there wasn't any kind of overlap. Yeah, so here it's creating the blank rule. Yeah, I'm gonna have to copy some of this code. So where is it actually creating the create element? Nope. Apply that, build nested CSS rules. Where am I putting the these rules? Here's the style sheet. Feels like so long ago whenever I did this. Okay, so this was just taking a style sheet that was already created. Here we go. So this style sheet is equal to document.createElement style. Give it the type. Give it a name so that we can find it, but I don't think that's really necessary for this. And then we append it to the head. Yeah. All right, so here, this .style element is equal to HTML style element document.create element style. Let's just static import that. Yep. Let's go ahead and create a field for that. Good thing we committed everything. That way we can actually see what we modified. All right, so there's the element. So here's style sheet or style element, which is different than the other style sheet. Document head, append, style element. And then this style sheet equals CSS style sheet, element sheet. There we go. Then we can just assign that as a field. All right, so then we create a new style element. This is just going to append always. We're going to have to clean this up whenever the table gets removed. So that's something that we have to take into consideration. So in the initialize, we'll need to make sure that we listen for the attach and detach callbacks so that we can remove this style sheet, the style element from the DOM. All right, so back over to here, we pass that in. What do we do with that style sheet? So we have to be able to create a blank rule. Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. You actually have to create a blank rule by passing it a weird selector. And then you have to delete that rule so that you don't actually modify the style sheet. Otherwise, you can create the entire rule as a string and actually insert it, because insert rule, I think it only takes style sheet, insert rule. Yeah, it only takes a string of the entire rule definition, unfortunately. So where are we actually appending these? I don't know why, but this song sounds a little bit like Zelda, like the fairy music. Just in places, not the whole thing. So you'll not be able to unhear that now. You're welcome. I do not know where it's actually adding back to the style sheet, because it's deleting it. Why is it deleting it? I'm trying to remember what I did a few months ago. This is just the helper. And this was just using the helper to basically append things back into the style sheet element. Yeah, that's not very helpful. All right. So let's just figure out something that will work for today. So we basically just want to create column definitions. I don't think we need to worry about rows because all of the other rows are already handled by the absolute positioning. We're just trying to get the widths of the columns to behave. So we initialize the style sheet. Probably need to data table. Unattached. Mutation record. Okay. All right, so I'm not completely familiar with the mutation record. Need to do a console log of that mutation record just to see what that looks like. This is me vamping while I'm trying to think of how to do the rest of it. All right, so the type is a child list. Stuff be released? I would hope so. Yeah, it definitely needs a lot more work, and you and I need to sit down at some point to combine our stuff, because you did the HTML templating side and I was working on the CSS side, and my CSS still needs quite a bit of work, even with the binding stuff that I had. Yeah, I think that would be a good goal. It's one of the many projects that I start and never complete. There was a new thing that I saw on Twitch this morning whenever I logged in, was a like a guest mode where you can invite people to your streams, and it uses Google Chrome for that. I don't know if it's like a sort of like a Google Meet or something, but it allows you to pull in other people to your live streams. I'm not entirely sure what the scope of it is. It's probably just like webcam access, so that you can have somebody else's webcam like maybe above or something. Might be interesting to play around with. Might create another view for that, for any kind of guests. I don't like this microphone right in front of me. Sounds good, but maybe I'll lean forward a little bit so that it's off screen. All right. Yeah, all of that's working. I don't know what to do with the mutation record. I might have to look that up later. I'm just going to put a big to-do here. Need to remove the style sheet, or the style element when attach and detach the data table from DOM. Otherwise, it'll just be leaking CSS rules. Don't want that. I could probably just redo these. So this might be, let me just do a naive implementation of this. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to private static. It's not going to be final. It's just going to be an int instance counter. And there is my cat. Did you not eat? It's lunchtime for you. All right. I want to have an instance counter so that I can basically use this as a means of setting up the CSS rule selectors. Right, and that's the web RTC stuff. That's the stuff that we'll need to play around with as well. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that we can start doing. Before row add, I'm assuming that this has all of the row data. So let's do a table row. Get I need the cells, but I need them in order. Oh, you know what? I need to remember what everything this has. So I have that, but what if I have data table get whenever you resize a column, I don't know if Ahmad's still in the chat. He's probably cut out. I don't blame him. This is oh, there. His name's in there. I don't know if he's still here though. Whenever I don't know what the recent changes were. Do the column configs get updated whenever the rows are resized. I am going to find that out. All right, in order to do that, I need to put in the resize plugin to this live grid. So let's come down here. Let's add the resize columns plugin. Let's come over here and let's just see what is actually what it's doing. My office is feeling cold. I'm wondering if my schedule kick back on, because I usually don't come into my office. Oh, bottom level columns. Right, but whenever I resize, does it update the width on the column config? Because if that's the case, then I should be able to do this in a completely different way than I had anticipated. Ooh, I can do something with this. I can do something with this. Okay. That's actually a good idea. Instead of doing some weird crap like this, what if I were just to iterate through the columns and update definition sizes? All right, so let's ignore this one for time being. I need to be able to attach a CSS name to the row that we're inserting. Let me find out where I started that at. Init. All right, so first thing that I need to do here is I need to put some sort of top level this data table element, add CSS, or add CSS. There we go. And we're going to call this one let's put this in the constructor, or I can just do it in the field initializer, private final string. Also, the bottom level column size is changed. You get an event with the column and the width difference. Oh, but it's on the individual column, right? It's not. Is it with the column config that you get a event? I can figure out where to plop on the events later. Main CSS marker equals live grid plus instance counter plus plus. Whoa, what did I just do? All right, so then in the init method, I need to add CSS that. So step by step, I just want to see this stuff take place. All right, so if I inspect that, that's going to be the table, and this is live grid 0. Cool. So this will only happen on live grids. All right. And I can even, whenever it's inserting it, document create element style, I can do style element ID equals, and let's just give it the same main style marker. And this is not static, so I don't know why I named it like a static. So I can just use the same as an ID. I think IDs can have dashes in it, right? Can't remember. All right. Yes. Okay. I thought so. I couldn't remember. This is going to be key. This is going to be very key. Very key. All right. So then every time we like before add row, we need to go through the cells and apply a CSS name. So table row. All right, so iter over that. Table row, get cell rows, entry set. Get value. Wait, is this not actually the cell itself? It's the row. I want the TD that this is in. Get element. There it is. Okay, I guess I do have to get that. So then CSS class list add entry dot key. But I'm probably going to prepend live in front of it. See what that does. Oops, that is not what I wanted to do. So then I can use the definitions with their actual column names. That way I don't have to rely upon indexes, right? That seems legit. Inspect that. That did not add. That did not add a CSS name. Does it rewrite it? Before add row, does it replace the CSS classes? It might. Because I saw some places that it did that. So for uses. Row. So this is draw record. Render add CSS. So this is adding CSS. That's on the other table row itself. Does it get into the loop? I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, does it even get to that point? Do you think the cells of this table row is empty? Is that the case? Maybe I have to do this in the appender part. Live view plugin. And this is going to be this guy right here. Yeah, it might not even be getting to that point. Ooh, I'm getting a no such element exception. Probably with my demo. Ignore that. Yeah, it's not even getting to that point. All right. So it looks like the cells aren't even there at this point. Okay, so I could probably move this out to, because this was before. Let me add it to the actual append row, because obviously it'll exist here. All right, let's on before add cell. Oh, that exists. Today I learned. Yeah, okay. So that worked at least. But that's a good point. I can before add cell. That's a very good one. Yeah, super doesn't do anything, does it? Nope. It's a empty. So in this one, row cell. How was I doing that? I need to know which cell this is, though. I need to know the name of it. Get config. There it is. Yep. All right. So row cell. Was I doing that before? I was doing a row cell. Get cell info. I already got the cell info element. Class list. Add. Live dash. This is going to be row cell, column config, get name. Oops, I needed that. All right, so then I don't have to do this weird iteration thing. Let's just double check that this works. And it does. Alrighty then. So on the so now that we have class names, then we can just size it, right? Let's do that. Let's do that. Header resize right here. So basically, we just want to grab the other columns, and for each one of those, let's iter on data table, get table config, get columns. Column config, get name, we got that, get width, we got that, and it's going to be the pixel. I'm assuming it's just going to be whatever width. It's going to be combination of that and the unit. Couldn't remember the term for that. All right. So one thing that I could do is just always flush the sheet. Let's just do it the naive way. Flush the sheet rules and create new ones. So style sheet rules. Can't remember how to remove a rule. It's over here. Style sheet helper. Delete rule. So it's from, I was trying to type remove. Delete rule. While style sheet CSS rules length is greater than 0. Style sheet delete rule 0. Right? That'll keep deleting. Then once it's length 0, it won't try to delete any more rules. All right, so that flushes all of the CSS rules. So here, style sheet insert rule. We need the main CSS marker. This is going to look stupid, but it might work. So the main CSS marker, and then followed by a dot, column, get name. Oh, nope, it's a live dash. I need to stop using magical strings. So I do need to pull that selector name out just in case I want to change it later. Plus, there we go. Width is equal to column get width plus semicolon plus end of rule. Do you think this will work? There's no way this is going to work. What? Worked. That worked. All right, shut up. That worked. It's all dynamic. So then as soon as the header resizes, it's going through and dynamically updating the CSS, not having to update any of the actual cells. Those are basically static. And there we go. We got the live grid back. Woo! That deserves another round of applause. That one actually worked, and it's... I might have to just double check the performance on this. Can't really tell if it's better or worse performance, but I mean, just scrolling through here, it's not resizing, I don't think. Let me console log resizing headers. What? Let's just make sure that it's not doing any kind of resizing whenever I'm not expecting it to. There we go. Load data. All right, we resize the headers that first time. Yeah. I mean, it is holding 1 million records. It is holding 1 million records. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see this is 1 million records. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that worked. I mean, I was hoping to get to some of the row virtualization today, and I might still do that because it's only 11:30 Eastern right now. So resizing that, and that resize is actually being called quite a bit, but it is happening fast enough where, I mean, you can see it's resizing very minor pixel changes. I mean, resizing might be a little slower, but you have to remember we only have like 50 records, 50 rows in the other DOM. Let me inspect that real quick. Come up to the T body. Child element count 34. So yeah, it's only having to reflow 34 rows. I mean, yeah, the cell's in it, but the live grid, I was only intending for this to be for row count. I wasn't doing any kind of fanciness for the other column count. And I don't even think AG grid handles columns in terms of the other live nature. I don't know why it flickers like that. I don't know if you can see that on the other stream. Let me, no, that's, that just suppresses it. Whenever I'm scrolling through, you can see the header bouncing. I think that bounces even with some of these others. Maybe not. Let me do 5,000 rows. I think it's like the more rows that you have, the more bouncy it gets. No, maybe it's just the live. Why would the live do that? Why does it bounce? I mean, obviously the T body is getting updated because it's getting elements added and removed. I'm wondering if it's because... No, I'm changing it to absolute position before they're inserted, so I wouldn't expect that to actually resize anything. I mean, all of this, the styles are already done there. I need to count for the multiple grids. What do you mean? Need to count. I don't know how far back you type that. Need to count for multiple grids. Yeah, what was that in reference to? I kind of lost track. If I were to change this to something much smaller, like 5,000, does it still bounce? No, it doesn't bounce. I'm wondering if it's because we're at the limit. CSS class name. What we add the same grid twice? What do you mean the same grid? The same instance? You can't do that. Right, I knew what you meant, but we can't do that because it's all the instance of the data table is going to be a single element, right? Right, but the CSS I pre-pinned the live grid 0 on all of the selectors. So yeah, the multiple tables can have the same column name, but because I'm pre-pending live grid 0, basically the instance counter. So every time you create an instance of the live grid plugin, and you can't use the same plugin on multiple live grids, that would break things because it's initializing and holding on to references of the table grid. It's adding the class to the main element of the data table. So then this is specific to that. Do I have that anywhere here? Right here, you can see it right there. I don't need to obfuscate. I can just use that counter. And because I am using a nested selector, yeah, the live index or the live model can exist in many different column or tables, but it's all bound to that parent. Okay, right. So that's the way that works. That way I didn't have to do any kind of obfuscation. I didn't want to do obfuscation. I think this is a little bit easier. It's just a counter. It was a quick and naive approach to implementation. Correct. It doesn't matter. The only issue that I have now is the life cycle of the style sheet element itself. Like whenever the data table gets removed from the DOM, I probably need to remove the style sheet element too. How do you think it's breakable? I mean, sure, you can have somebody put live grid 0 as a CSS class somewhere else in their CSS, but that's going to be a risk for even obfuscated. There's still a small chance. Because every instance, I have a... Okay, right. There is the other fact that if you're loading a single GWT module multiple times in the host page, this is assuming that you have a singleton really is a singleton. I could change it so that it puts the counter on the window or something global to the browser. Does that make sense? Because right now I'm assuming a singleton within the scope of a single GWT module. And that might be fine for now. I mean, obviously, if you are a crazy person and you load multiple GWT modules around a single host page, it would definitely need to be able to handle multiple singletons of that same class. Right. Or, like I said, I can just put the I can put this counter instead of a static field. I can just throw that on top of window, make it an actual static global variable on window. I don't like doing that, but it's possible. Micro front ends. Ugh. Yeah. Yeah, I know. But I got what I was aiming for accomplished today. That actually works out really well. I like it. Gave me a headache, but I like it. So whenever I break for lunch, I need to take some leave. That is really cool. Oh, what about pinning? That's gonna be a problem, right? Ooh, didn't even think of that. So whenever I pin a column, I don't know what that does. Please work. Please just work out of the box. Oh my god, it worked! Oh my god. It works. Oh. I don't know how. I don't know how, but it worked. Oh. You have no idea how much that makes me happy. Oh, shut up. Yes, it does. It does. What? Can't believe that worked. That is nice. Dynamic CSS for the win. So Ahmad, you can kind of get a sense of what we could do to basically convert the data table completely out of the table element and start using divs. And as long as we have a decent model for listening to resize events, for like the you have a table model that has the pub sub type approach, maybe with all of the vertispan binding and properties that we've been working on, be able to listen to resize events and then recalculate down the chain for all of the other columns and rows and whatever. And we will be able to completely revamp the rendering mechanisms for a data table. I like it. Oh, I'm so happy that worked. Seems performant too. And this is 1 million records. I mean, yeah, there's that little delay right there. Need to put some sort of splash screen. That could just be a future enhancement to have some sort of loading indicator whenever it's swapping pages. Cool. Because it's basically looking up records in a array list. I don't think it's taking long for determination of which rows can be seen, but you have to remember, like all million records, it's faster at the top than it is the bottom. So once you start scrolling down towards the bottom, the delay is a little bit more. At least that's what I've noticed. Not a lot more, but I don't know. Let's performance check this. Oh, now it's dragging. Let's see what it's doing. All right, so let's take a look in here. Get filtered records. Oh, I do have a. I think I do have a delay in here. So scroll. Update scroll top. Sync delay. 50 millisecond sync delay. So it waits 50 seconds for the user to stop scrolling before it actually calculates any of the stuff. But this seems to be half a second. Right. So this is a half a second for grabbing the data. Get filtered count. Filtered records. I think it's with data copies. There's the data store. Yeah, right here. This was from upstream. It is copying the filtered records, which is going to be copying all 1 million records. Now there's only one usage. I feel weird about returning this directly, but let's see if that breaks anything. Yeah, any kind of data copy of 1 million records every single time you scroll, probably not pleasant. Yeah, that seems to be a lot more responsive just by taking out that, that copy. If I were to package private that, make sure that nobody calls it from the outside, because it's, wait, is that even needed outside? One uses that it's from the data store, so this can be just private. And I don't even know why I'm doing that. I can just do filtered. There we go. Like I said, whenever I implemented this data store, I didn't want to recreate it from scratch, so I copied from the local data store. What is that called? Local list data store. So get filtered records. Yeah. So it's an artifact from the local list data store from Domino. I just haven't purged anything that I'm not using, because I don't know what I'm going to need at some point, because I haven't even looked at the filtering stuff yet. But yeah, that seems to be quite a bit faster. It's not having to copy 1 million records into a new array list just for the other size. Okay, that's pretty sexy right there. I like it. Yeah, that works out really well. Yeah, that is really responsive now. All right, so let's flush that. Do another recording. Let's scroll through here. That. Yeah, those are a lot smaller dips. Yeah, that's just inserting the DOM elements. So yeah, this is 86 milliseconds, 90 milliseconds, 83 milliseconds. So yeah, this is quite a bit faster than the half second that it was taking before. And this is mainly just adding, because the insert is taking up most of the time for plopping those DOM elements in there. All right, cool. I like it. Ship it. It's got my stamp of approval. Yeah, I just have to play around with some of the other things, like the column filter. That's something that I was working on last stream. And this one, we wanted to apply some meta, new column filter. And I cannot remember how to do that. Header filter, create. There we go. Let's see if we can filter this live grid. Yeah. that took a long time. I don't know if that's, I mean, it has to go through a million records to column filter meta of. Oh, yeah, I mean, this works too. Oops. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that takes a little bit, but once it's filtered, the filtering takes the long period of time, because it does have to go through a million records, create the new array list based upon that filter by running it through basically the, I guess it has to run through the cell renderer, right? To be able to get the content to be able to filter it. So yeah, that's a little bit pricey. Yeah, that's very pricey. But it is. Right. Right, but how does it do that? Because what if I had a column that was a composite of multiple bits of data? Like, how would you do the filter on that? It does. There's no like property editors on this. I guess that's something that I should dive into at some point, just to see how the other filters work. Because, like I said, if I had a column configuration that created some sort of complex value based upon multiple fields, or even traversing down object graphs to produce that cell, how would a filter work? You have to implement the filtering. Okay, so then how does this one work then? Because all I'm doing is creating a simple text header filter. It doesn't know how to pull out. I mean, it has to have the text node. It doesn't know how to find the make vehicles. I don't know. Maybe that's something that we can discuss offline. Filter value. Because I didn't set up any kind of filter value or anything like that here. All I did was apply the column filter metadata to this, but it's still somehow able to determine how to get the make, because I type in that and it's able to find them just fine. So something has to be rendering that cell on all of the data. I don't see any other way around that. I mean, let's do something fancy here. Let's do cell.get table row get record.get yeah, let's get make plus the model. So let's combine the make and model. So if I look at Ford, it's able to find all of the Fords. If I do Explorer, it does not do anything. Or it's still doing something because my computer's locked up. I don't know. Let me click on the link. It's taking me to the wrong browser. Wait, so how did I do this? It was a couple of weeks since I implemented this. Filter. Oh, ha ha ha. All right. My bad. My bad. It's right there. I forgot that I implemented that. Okay. So it does have to at least know from in here how to traverse the records based upon which filter it is. Okay, never mind. I forgot all about that. Because with GXT, Sencha GXT, we had property editors. Basically, you created an interface using the deferred binding and generators, and it would create all the accessors and mutators for every property that you wanted to be able to use. And that was the poor man's way of dealing with the fact that there's no reflection. Okay, cool. Cool, that works for me. I'll get rid of that. All right, cool. I think that is basically going to do it, because all of the rest of this seems to work. I will provide you, oh, that tooltip stayed there. I will provide you with the PDF for the defects that I found earlier. Some of them were existing from the previous time. Right, that makes a lot of sense. The GXT stuff, it was all just client-based. For any kind of sort info, there was a bean that provided like the name of the field, so that whenever it goes to the server, you would be able to pull out the name of the column or the field and do your sorting that way. Excuse me, had to cough. All right. Cool. All right, so I guess the other thing that I need to eventually do, and I'll probably break for lunch for now. I might just leave the other stream up. I don't know. I need to do some virtualization. Is that even worth it for anything more than 1 million? Because I do like 2 million. This is going to break because of the maximum height that the oh yeah, I know. Because of the maximum height a element can get. So if I come in here, I can see these rows, but there are still other rows in here. But because there's a restriction for any element to be no larger than, I got 30 something, or like 32 million pixels tall. How tall is this? This is 33.5 million pixels tall. Right, it does. And the way it does it is basically calculates the percentage. Like at a certain point, you have to say, well, I'm like 100% scrolled down, and I just need to translate that some way to the backing collection. Exactly, right, scaling it. So that's essentially what I have to do. But that's going to require me to get a little bit of food and deal with my headache from this morning's activities. So yeah, let me do that. There's only 4 viewers, and I think 3 of them are me, Colin, and Ahmad. Welcome, 4th viewer, whoever you are. But I am going to be taking a break real quickly to have some lunch. Probably a good 30 minutes. I'll just go ahead and end the stream instead of streaming music. That just seems kind of weird. So you'll get the notification whenever I'm back. Be sure to click on the follow and the little notification bell so that you know whenever I'm back on. And then this afternoon, we will go ahead and tackle the virtualization whenever the row count is larger than the element can actually support. I think it is doable by pretending the user didn't move when they move a small amount, since the scroll bar won't move anyway. Yeah, that's going to be a problem, because it's going to be jumping quite a bit. So if I take a look at AG grid row virtualization element height, I know that they have a page specifically on massive row count. Here we go. So yeah, 32 million. So in this particular case, they have 320,000 rows displayed, each one of them 100 pixels high. So this exceeds the height restriction, but we can see all the way down to 999. I guess they do, yeah, 0 indexed. Basically, small scrolls is based upon percentage of the other way there. The user just can't actually drag the scroller. Yeah. Oh, I know that, and that's a part that I don't like about it, is that you wouldn't be able to pinpoint. You wouldn't be able just to go up pixel by pixel, because it's going to be jumping like 100 or 200 records based upon a scale or a percentage. But if you're holding that much data, the scroll bar is not going to be helpful anyways, even if it were able to scroll larger than the 32 million pixel limit. So I'm not entirely sure how they do this, because I'm using the scroll wheel right now, and it seems to be doing it in order, and it doesn't look like the scroll is moving any. So that is going to be a problem. Oh, that's kind of funny. But the Z index of this table was blocking my webcam. Forgot that there's a box around me. Yeah, I'm going to commit the work that I've done thus far, only because it works. Oh, I need to get rid of the console logging. Oh yeah, still need to figure out that mutation record. I don't know how that works. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to start attempting the different virtualization, and then we'll hopefully have a working live grid plugin that we can provide back to the DominoUI team and incorporate that within the library itself. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it for now. I will be back at about 12:30 Eastern. So enjoy your lunch, and I will see you then. Thank you.